All right, guys, back out in the garage again. I'm so stoked for this video because today I'm gonna learn how to install cam bearings in this small block Chevy and check oil clearances on the main caps using plastigauge. Most of the information that I spew out to you guys came from this book right here. It was super helpful. There's a lot of good information in this book, but when installing cam bearings, there is some stuff that was not in there that I needed to know, and I ended up having to go search the internet for it, and I will share that information with you guys, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you if you guys ever do this to your own engines in the future. I also bought a universal cam bearing installation tool off of Amazon. I paid 75 bucks for the tool, so I think it'll be a good deal, and I think it'll work out just fine. Now, I'm gonna shut up, and we're gonna start working on this small block, because I'm excited to learn something new today. So the first step in assembling the engine is to install the cam bearings. Well, the book that I'm using does not talk at all about the installation of cam bearings. So I had to go to the internet. I checked several sources, not just YouTube, and figured out where the cam bearings go. On top of what I found on the internet, your box that your bearings come in should tell you the position for each bearing. They'll have a part number that is coordinated to what bore they go into. Number 1 being the foremost, the front of the engine, and number 5 being the rear of the engine. Every cam bearing has a hole in it to allow oil to get in and lubricate the cam. Well, that hole needs to be at the 2 o'clock or 60-degree position, and you got to put these in upside with the engine upside down. The 60-degree position is with it right side up. So I made a mark on the bottom to help me locate the bearing into the bore, and I'll show you how I did that. And here's a little diagram that I made. I just traced out one of the bearings, crossed out the center, found center, and then just divided this little corner here by half and then half again. This section right here is 60-ish degrees. This would be your 2 o'clock position. So what I'm going to do, this cam bearing, number 1, has 2 holes in it, but it's still the same thing. You want that hole to be in the 2 o'clock position. So it's basically the same on this side as it is on that side. And then what I did is I came down here and just kind of lined up this center line on the bearing, marked it on the bearing, so that way when I come up here to install this upside down, I can line that mark up with this oil hole here, and that will put this hole in the 2 o'clock position. When you're installing your cam bearings, you're installing them dry. But you definitely want to make sure that they're clean, both front side and back side. And you also want to make sure that the bore that you're going into is also clean and dry. So you want to start at the very back bearing and work your way forward, because this piece won't fit through the bearing bore, through the bearing, once everything's installed. Like I said before, I'm going to line this mark up with these oil holes in the block, and that'll get me at my 2 o'clock position. Slide the bearing onto the tool here, which looks like it's there, and then you want to tighten up this end to put a little bit of pressure on it so it doesn't slip. So we're going to start. The bearing's already on the end of this tool. I have my line up to align it with these oil holes in these crank bearings, and once you do that, can start hammering it in. Got that 5th bearing in, moving on to the 4th. It's pretty simple. Just pound them in and make sure that the oil hole lines up with the groove in the block. have it. We got all the cam bearings in. Woohoo! And as you can see, we're in the 2 o'clock position here. Remember, this front one has the 2 holes. That one. 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and not 2 o'clock. I messed up on the back one, but I'm not too terribly concerned about it because from the research that I did, as long as the hole is in the 10 to 2 o'clock position, you're in a safe zone. May not be the best zone if you're all the way over in the 10 to 11 o'clock position, but it's in an okay position. So I didn't want to push it out just in the off chance that it might ruin the bearing. I'm already playing risky business with the number 1, so. I also made 2 mistakes. One of those mistakes was a disservice to you guys. In my search on how to install the cam bearings, I came across an article, I believe it was by Molly. I'm not 100% sure, I don't remember. I looked at a lot of different articles that said, install and torque your main caps before installing your cam bearings. I forgot to do that. It can cause the hole to distort just a little bit, and they said you get a truer reading when you're installing your cam bearings. So I messed that up. My bad. We'll see if it screws it up. I doubt it will. Mistake number 2. This last cam bearing, I went through all 4 of the first 4. I went through the first 4 without pushing them too far. This last cam bearing, I pushed it too far. Had to push it the rest of the way and then try again. I do not know what kind of issues that might cause later down the road. Hopefully none, but I'm gonna risk it. I'm gonna keep going anyway, and we'll see what happens. And if it blows up, well, that's just entertainment for you guys, right? Enough chitter chatter. On to the next step. So the main bearings are already in. All you gotta really do is make sure you put them in dry for 1, and 2, make sure that the little tangs that are off on the side are in the proper position. Same thing with the crank journals. The crank journals need to be dry as you're doing this as well. All right. Big, not light. I'm just gonna gently set this in, making sure that these oiling holes aren't gonna be where we're gonna set plastigauge. So just kind of rotate it over a little bit. Yeah, it drops right in. We're gonna cut each strip for each journal, and it needs to lay all the way across the journal where the bearing rides. What I'm gonna do is I'm just going to take a razor blade, set it on there. I'm just going to go ahead and cut all 5 of them in this one spot because these ones a little harder to get to. You want to be really ginger with this stuff, you can smash it. The very rear one is the longest, so you got to make sure that your plastigauge goes all the way across that. All right, there's the plastigauge sitting on all 5 journals. You're going to get your main caps. They're gonna have their bearings in, and then you're just careful to not knock the plastigauge off of the journal. When torquing your main caps, you want to do it in increments of 3. The final product is 75 foot-pounds on a 2-bolt main small block Chevy based out of the book I'm using. So we're gonna start at 35 foot-pounds. 34. We're gonna start at 34. And we're gonna start in the center. Oh, there's one. And work our way out, from the middle out. Once they're all down to 75 foot-pounds, you get the pleasure of taking them all back off and seeing how much it smashed the plastigauge. As you can see, crushed our plastigauge on each one. The recommended oil clearance for these engines is 1/1000th of an inch for every inch of the journal diameter. That's just over 2 inches on this motor. So we want to be in that 2.5 thousandths of an inch range. We're about 2 thousandths there. Maybe a little wider than 2 there. 2 thousandths there. Okay, we're at 2. It's a little smaller, but you know what? That's okay. I don't mind. It's gonna be fine. After you're done clearance or checking the oil clearance on your main caps, you want to get the plastigauge off of here, and I just use my fingernail to scrape it off and then clean it with some brake clean, and that's it. You're done with your main caps, and then we got to work on the connecting rod bearings. But I want to keep these videos kind of short and sweet because it's a lot of information to take in all at once. So we'll do the connecting rods in the next video, and I'll have that out shortly. I hope you guys learned something today. I know I did. I learned a lot in this video, and I'm going to continue learning. We got the connecting rod bearings to check, piston rings to put in, and then we can put the pistons in, and that'll be in the next video. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you on the next one.